Today I'm going to tell you 9 little stories about PRT or ATN or Podcars in the US. And when I say Podcars or ATN or PRT, I'm referring to small automated vehicles on exclusive guideways, be they elevated or at grade. I'm not talking about automated vehicles in mixed traffic at all. So these 9 stories consist of 3 PRT projects, 3 hurdles for PRT to overcome, and 3 initiatives that are being undertaken in the US this last year. So I'm kind of giving you an update on what we've been involved with over the last year. So the first project is at GreenvilleSpartanburg International Airport, which is a small airport. By US standards, it's about number 100 in the US, has about 2 million annual passengers, which is about the same size as Rotterdam. And we did a feasibility study there looking into a PRT connector between the parking lot and the terminal. And in that study, we determined the capital costs would be around 20 million, operating costs would be about $1.5 million a year. And based on that, the airport decided they would probably like to move ahead, but before they did, they wanted to validate the costs that we got. So we went through a procurement process and went out to suppliers and got 3 proposals, of which 2 were found to be reasonable. And their cost proposals were very similar to the ones in the feasibility study, which was good. So right now, the airport is undertaking site visits. We visited to get there last week. And next month we'll go and visit Modutram, and then the board will make a decision whether or not they want to move ahead in November. So this is the basic layout. You have the parking lot down here and the terminal up there, and that station is at one corner of the terminal. Red is elevated guideway, and then green is at grade, and this yellow is future guideway because they need to expand the parking lot down this way. In practice, we deliberately put one elevated station in and one at-grade station in the parking lot because we wanted to get alternative bids. In practice, these will probably both end up at grade, and the terminal station will probably end up at grade 2. So that's one project. The next one is in Antwerp City, Utah. And if any of you have been skiing in Utah, you've probably been to Park City. It's in the mountains behind Salt Lake City. And this was a University of Utah student engineering project. And we were hired by Park City to help guide the student work, to help them afterwards draw realistic conclusions based on what the students found, because the students didn't necessarily quite figure things out correctly. And then also we had 4 Dialogue assist us with teaching the students how to do 3D dynamic modeling. And so, as you can see, it's a real mountainous terrain. The guideways follow the valleys and follow the roads. In this case, the elevated portions of the guideway are green and the at grade are red. And we have about 10 miles from north to south. And this distance is 4 to 5 miles from east to west. So that was the layout. We used Nathan's Podcars software to help us do things like this, which is to figure out the travel times. And as you can see, you can get almost anywhere between these stations and around these stations in about 20 or 25 minutes. From north to south, takes about 17 minutes by car when it's uncongested, and a lot of the times it's congested, and that would take about 18 minutes by PRT. I should talk about the congestion a little bit because this is the reason for this project. It's getting more and more congested, and the congestion is growing every day. And the community has decided they do not want to widen the roads. No bus rapid transit, no extra lanes, no extra pavement. So basically they're stuck. They have to put in some kind of a transit system. It's either going to be light rail or commuter rail or PRT or something like that. So that's why they wanted to look at this. So Incitra did a 3D animation. Not quite sure how to make this work, but I think that's it. So this is one of the commercial areas that the guideway goes through. They based this model on the Multitram system in Mexico that has a fairly open-looking guideway that's not as intrusive as some. And then those are the Multitram vehicles. And those are the actual buildings in the neighborhood that they modeled to look like they really do look like. So this is quite appealing to the local people to kind of see what the visual impact will be. So we analyzed the costs over a 30-year period, and the total capital cost, and by the way, in the beginning of this period, the system is not all that busy, but it rapidly builds up because all that extra surplus road traffic is diverted to the PRT system. So the growth in the PRT traffic is quite dramatic. And towards the end of the period, the capacity starts to max out. And we end up with about 2,000 vehicles and about a little over $1 billion in capital costs, about $80 million in annual operating costs. But we have about 200 million annual passenger miles. So that translates to about 40 cents a passenger mile. And when you look at how the operating costs break down over the whole time period, you need 47 cents a passenger mile to pay for the operating costs, and you'd need about 92 cents to also pay for the capital costs. Well, if you look at the two systems that are operating in Salt Lake City today, the front runner, which is a commuter rail, costs about 25 cents a passenger mile, and the light rail costs about 76 cents a passenger mile. So these costs are pretty well in the ballpark for a system that will either pay for all of its operating costs and or cover some or all of its capital costs. But we also looked at how did this PRT solution compare to these other systems. And when you look at the on-time reliability of the two rail systems, it's around about 90%. Whereas all the PRT systems that are in operation today are achieving in excess of 99.5% availability. That's substantially more. The average speeds for the PRT systems almost double the commuter rail and faster than the light rail. The waiting time is way less. The fare per passenger, as again I said, is similar, but if you look at the operating costs of the rail systems in Utah, it's $6 a passenger mile compared to 47 cents. This is a huge difference. The University of Utah is also interested in a PRT system on their campus. They have issues with, they're served by light rail, but when you get off the light rail, you're on the wrong side of campus, and you have to walk a long way to pretty much get most places. Plus, the students have difficulty getting between classes in time. So they did a master plan study where they compared walking, biking, shuttle bus, city bus, and light rail travel times. And in that study, they said Podcars is an option. And they laid out a PRT layout, and they suggested that had further study. Well, we did a conceptual evaluation based on their layout, which, and this is their layout with some adjustments, showing how the campus could be covered with a number of, I think about 22 stations. If I remember right, these walking circles are really small. They're an eighth mile radius, which is what, about a quarter of a kilometer, 300 meters. And if you look at the travel times, you can get anywhere on campus in the wide areas within 5 minutes, and the light blue is within 10, and then anywhere on campus within 15 minutes from President's Circle, which is kind of the heart of the campus. So when you compare these results to the results that they got in the master plan, you find that PRT is better than anything else, with the exception of the bicycle going to the Marriott, which matches the time of the PRT. So those were quite favorable results. We did some rough cost estimates, 200 to 400 million for capital and about 50 cents to $1 per passenger mile. So those are the three projects. Now we're quickly going to work through three hurdles. First was a study done back in 2012 at a large West Coast city where the consultant considerably exaggerated the technical difficulties of Podcars. They also exaggerated the costs and maybe a little bit the political difficulties, although I admit there are a lot of potential political difficulties. ATRA refuted these exaggerations, but by then the damage had been done and the project was pretty much killed. Hopefully there is still a little bit of interest in the city and it may yet go ahead. More recently, last year, there were two cases of very well-known airport consultant claiming that the Podcar capacity in the first case, without justification, they just had the statement in the report, the capacity is only 400 passengers per hour per direction. And then the speed is only 25 miles an hour, and automated people movers can do 55 miles an hour. So therefore, we're not looking at PRT or Podcars. If you read the report and you analyze the numbers, you discover the speed of the APM on average was 11 miles an hour. PRT could easily beat that. The other airport, they said that if you have a two-bay station and the vehicles have to back out of the bays, that's 40-second dwell time for each vehicle. You've got two vehicles, so that means you've got two bays, you've got a vehicle every 20 seconds with 4 passengers. That's 720 passengers per hour. That's the capacity of the PRT system. They forgot to mention that the station was offline, so you could actually get all the vehicles coming by as well as the vehicles coming out of the station. And then they forgot to say why they picked 2-bay stations. Why not a 3-bay station? So you've got consultants doing work that's not very favorable to Podcars. And the message here is that people like groups like the Advanced Transit Association need to do a whole lot more work to educate consultants better. So, which is a segue into the 3 initiatives. These are some of the things that ATRA has been doing this year. And the first one is cooperating with other organizations. And the prime reason for this is to educate the consultants. And so this is just a long list of the organizations that we're cooperating with. And when I say cooperating with, in every one of these cases, we've not only gone to their conferences, but we've gotten on the agenda, we've made talks and presentations and so on, and or teamed with them to do video, I don't say podcast, but yeah, podcasts. Yeah. The other thing we're doing, and that came up before, Gene, you had the question, in fact, Gene knows the answer to this because he's actually involved. We're helping revise the ASCE automated people mover standards, which were, yeah, my last slide, second last slide, which were developed to, for automated people movers. We're working with them to adjust those standards to be more suitable for PRT. For example, they require a door height of 6'9", 2 meters, which is not really appropriate for a vehicle where you're going to sit down in. We've also been working with the Federal Transit Administration. They recently had a public outreach where they came out to the public with a website that said, please put in your ideas for what we should be doing for research and development, and then also vote on all these different ideas. So that is now closed. And these are the top 4 ideas that came out of that. The numbers on the left are the number of votes that these ideas got, okay? So the number one idea was an ATN demonstration system, and that was submitted by ATRA. The number two idea was to study O&D traffic in a total transit connectivity situation. That was an ATRA submittal. And the number three idea, this was mentioned before, was to de-emphasize corridors in transportation planning. And that was an ATRA idea. So we got the top three ideas in, and the top three numbers of votes. Hopefully now the federal government will actually do something about this and listen to what the voters have told them. So thank you very much. But before I'm done, I have one more little pitch as the president of ATRA. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, please think about joining ATRA. It's the advancedtransit.org is the website. Also, if you're a member of ATRA or you're interested in becoming a member of ATRA, the ATRA Industry Group and ATRA are having a strategic planning session at the end of this conference where we'll talk about what we did this year and what we plan to do next year. And that'll be right after the reception at the very end of this conference. So if you're interested, let's get together then and we'll have a little meeting and go out to dinner together. And that'll be tomorrow evening. Thank you.
Peter?
Yes.
In my